big swings.
Well, here it comes. Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow! In your life, have you seen anything like that?
Big moments.
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer.
All the news, all the views.
The career Grand Slam belongs to Corey Webb.
Welcome to the PGA Golf Club.
Hello and welcome to the PGA Golf Club show. We've got a cracking show today. Kevin Bartlett sitting in for Adam White alongside the world's greatest footballer golfer, Brendon Goddard. Craig Spence is going to join us and give us golf tip of the week from the Albert Park Golf Range. And David McKenzie. He's been flying the flag for Australia on the US PGA Senior Circuit and winning an absolute suitcase of money is our special guest. So big welcome to David McKenzie and Brendon Goddard. G'day, David. G'day,
hey,
Brendon.
KB, how you going?
KB.
Hey, BJ.
Tell you what, he's got that suitcase with him, Brendon. Have you seen how much money he's won on the US Seniors Tour?
That's one of the things we want to talk about. Just how, may as well start with that, Dave. Just how kind of life-changing it is. You, like, with respect to you, been grinding away for turn professional in
1990. I was an assistant pro, 87, 88, 89 to 1990.
Yeah, and then now seniors tour, it must be kind of a career turnaround in.
Yeah, it was never really a plan. I thought at 40 I'd make enough to retire and I'd be doing the same thing as Jeff Ogilvy and those sorts of guys. But you know what? That didn't happen. I wasn't that good.
I was just been watching you on the Charles Schwab Cup, of course, which is the final event for the seniors tour. There's a story about you actually being in the field. You got to make the top 36.
Yeah, pretty much. I was outside of the top 36. I was 39th as they do a live sort of leaderboard sort of thing. I knew that I needed to play pretty well, and I got off to a nice start. I think I birdied the first two, then made another birdie early in the round, and so I was sort of cruising around without too much trouble. And going down about the 14th hole, my caddy said to me, who's a good friend of mine, he says to me, you know that before you made birdie on 13, you were tied for 36. And I'm like, no, I didn't know that. So now I pretty much knew that if I parred in, or at least I made another birdie, I'd be right. And as it turned out, I three-putted 17 and missed about an 18-footer on 18 that I thought would have been good as well. So I was in the car doing the Uber from the golf course at Thousand Oaks down to LAX. I was coming home. Until I got a call and say, you're in, you've made it.
Do you know, Brendon, I've actually, I'm going to take credit for David to be on the seniors tour over in the States, because a couple of years ago I played with David in the Box Hill Pro-Am, and after we played, he said, I'm leaving the country.
I'm going, I'm out of here.
So I inspired David to leave Australia to go overseas.
Yeah, it's been good. The Champions Tour's been awesome. Like the last 3 years, it wasn't something that I expected. I was fully anticipating, because I'd lost my card in America in about 2010, that I lost my status on the web, and pretty much didn't have anywhere to play.
How long were you on the web for?
I played the web 2001, 3, 4, 5.
1 in 5?
Pardon?
You won in 2005?
I won in 2005.
Yep.
And then played 2007, 8, 9, and 10. And then pretty much I tried doing some qualifyings in 2011, but that was expensive.
It's a good 9 or 10 years.
Yeah, so it's a fair bit of time. In 2006, I played the PGA Tour. So.
Yeah.
There's a lot of golfers in the world who turn 50 and would be very keen to play on the Seniors Tour over in the States. How difficult is it to actually get on that tour?
It's relatively hard. They only give out 5 spots each year. For someone, and we'll use myself as an example, I have to get one of those 5 spots, or I have to try and qualify. As it was, I hit a bit of a purple patch at pretty much the right time when the day that I turned 50 was the day before the Senior British Open, so I finished top 10 there. I had another 2 top 10s or top 5s on the tour in 2017, so that got me in the door. And then 2018 and 2019, I played pretty well and kept status. But otherwise, the only way to get on the tour is to finish 5th or the top 5 from their Q school. So it's really, really small.
And what about the tour now? What was your kind of perception leading into it, and now kind of what's reality?
I wasn't really sure whether I'd actually be good enough to actually compete over there. So In 2017, I was only going over for a month to do four qualifyings, I think. And as it turned out, I qualified all but one time that I tried.
7 events in 2017?
Yeah, there were 7 events. The Senior British Open was one. That's it's on their money list, but it's not. You don't go through the PGA Tour. So the first one that I got in a playoff was in Seattle for the Boeing Classic. And I'd shot 7 under, was leading after the first day, but then disappeared. Missed the next qualifying. The next qualifying was in British Columbia and Victoria. I got in a playoff again, and turned out I finished third in the tournament. So that changed everything in that I got into Pebble Beach, which is the next week. But what it had done is it got me in the top 72 on the money list, and the top 72 get to the first playoff event. And so in my mind, well, I might as well stay for another 2 weeks and I get some free money for that one. So I had a week off, and then there was one more event, regular season event, that I did another qualifying for. Again, I got it in a playoff and I finished 5th. So that opened another scenario that I'd finished top 54, which at the time I didn't realise, but top 54 gives you membership for the next year. And so that's pretty much how it's rolled from there. So it was a pretty cool way to do it, you know.
How do they treat you on the tour? I mean, there can be a fair bit of stargazing on the seniors tour. I mean, there's a lot of multi-millionaires, and they seem pretty relaxed out there. I mean, you got Vijay Singh's out there, and you got.
He's not so relaxed.
What's that?
He's not so relaxed, Vijay.
Not relaxed. Colin Montgomery's out there. He's got a big smile on his face most of the time these days. You got Bernhard Langer, of course, who's won $750 million. What are they like as blokes?
I think for me personally, because I came out of none of the guys knew me except some of the guys who played on the web previously. I think I got a little bit of respect that I came basically out of nowhere and had a 3rd and had a 5th and did well at the Senior British Open straight away. So whether they're like that all the time or just to me is that they've been absolutely, all the guys have been fantastic. A couple of guys that are a bit surly just because they've been around for a long time, but generally speaking...
Who's surly? Tell us who's surly.
Hey, mate, he's got to go back
Who's surly?
Come on.
Some of the guys have just won just recently too, so...
Well, who are the good guys, the really good guys? Now, I see Scott McCarron the other day won the Charles Schwab Cup and won a heap of money, and he played very poorly, in fact, but at the end, Retief Goosen was in a playoff there with Jeff Maggott, who I think they tried to change his name a few years ago and tried to call him McGirt or Madgett, but it's Maggott.
Well, they still try McGirt now even.
But what's Scott McCarron like?
You know, Scotty's a guy that you look at and you think, well, he's got that long putter. He's a cheat. You don't really like him.
I'm going to get to that.
All the time. It's the same. Everyone asks me
glad you're
questions.
saying
We're going to get to that.
Unintentionally,
I want to know,
that's okay.
Does he cheat along with Bernhard Langer?
Well, no, but let's get back to McCarron first.
Don't throw him under the bus, KB.
No, we'll get back to it. Don't worry.
But for a guy that that you think, well, we don't. He's absolutely a champion bloke. He's really a lot of fun. So that's where.
Who do you spend most of your time with? Who do you socialise with?
I have a lot of trouble spending a lot of time with most of them because I have to hold my tongue. As an Australian, you'd like to say, you know, I don't like Donald Trump, or I don't like this, or this guy's a. And so I spend a lot of time doing practice rounds on my own. And my caddy travels with me, who's a good mate of mine from America, who's an American guy. So that's who I spend most of my time with. Is just very quiet. And I keep my nose clean.
So how important is it to for guys 50 that would struggle? Probably most guys struggle the last 4 or 5 years on the PGA Tour or competing. And then how important is it? Is it a new lease of life?
Well, I don't know so much about that. I just treat it as something that I'm privileged to be able to go out and play still at 50. When I didn't have, I made a living out of playing golf, but I didn't make a fortune out of it. So I'm pretty happy that I'm able to do that. And I spoke with a few guys about that, and they love the competition. They realise that they're not going to win majors anymore. That they're not as good as what they were in their heyday. I did actually ask Mark O'Meara at one point during the year. We were having a practice round and we were playing a few holes. Practice rounds tend to be in a golf cart, and you jump holes all over the place. So you play 2 holes with this guy and 3 holes with that guy. But I asked Mark O'Meara, like, what really motivated him. I said, with no disrespect, you've had a great career. You've won 2 majors. You've won a lot of money over your life. And I said, well, what motivates you to play? And he said, well, David, a couple of years ago I had a divorce, so that cost me a lot of money. And he said,
honest.
And then he said to me, I like driving nice cars and I like living a nice lifestyle, and that's kind of expensive. So I need to make money. So he was totally honest in his motivations on how he was going.
But you're right. Like, and a lot of the guys don't need to be playing out there for money. Like, there would be, but some of them got so much money they don't know what to deal with. So it's more about being competitive.
And finding something to do. They'll play 20 weeks of the year. You've still got another 30-odd weeks of the year that you've got to find something to do. So, but most guys only play, well, I think the maximum you can play is 24 or 25. So most guys will play somewhere around 20 events for the year. It gets them out, gets them talking to the guys that they've spent most of their career on the PGA Tour, whereas I'm probably not quite in that club to be able to talk about them with in the same scenario. But generally, they're all really good.
Is it a game that's got a high divorce rate? You just talked about Mark O'Meara there, because if you're away travelling all the time, travelling all over the country, get married, when kids come along, it's pretty hard to drag all the kids around, although you see a lot of the, those big-name players often take their kids with them, but at some stage they've got to go to school, mum's got to stay home. It must put a lot of stress on the marriage.
Most definitely, but I don't think... and I haven't done any surveys or anything, but I would say it wouldn't be any worse than the general population. Okay. Would be my guess. Generally, the guys are pretty good, and and the wives are really good too, because they realise that it's all about the player. It's all about me, and that's the way golf is that you have to be kind of selfish. So I'm guessing that some of the wives are really good with that too.
Who's your favourite player on tour?
I've got a lot of time for Bernard Langer. He and not necessarily for his golf game, but just the fact that he remembers everyone that he plays with. He remembers my caddy's name. He remembers my wife's name. So that shows that it's someone who's got more to him than just golf. Do you know what I mean? Although he plays golf pretty well
and
too.
And cares about people.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Now, just with the putter, the broomstick putter. Yep. I know Mark Allen often he'll post something on Twitter and he'll say, "Surely that's touching his shirt." Where's the gap? So Longer's there and Scott McCarron's there, and they're using and
Billy Mayfair, I think,
they're winning a lot of money on the seniors tour. Yep. Is there much talk about it?
The players don't generally talk about it.
And publicly, but what about privately?
No, not even that much. But in all honesty, I will watch guys practicing, and I'll watch when I play with them. And for the most part, you can see their hand move. Like the times that their hands are not fixed in their chest, so you can see that there's some sort of movement there, much of the time, or the time that I'm watching. So without sort of putting any defence in there, personally, I used a belly putter for like 10 or 12 years or something. And so I went deliberately to a short putter because I wanted no grey area. I wanted no one to be able to say, hey, that's too close. Yeah. So I straight away went to a short putter, but that was just me.
So the issue's in the rule, KB. So it's about the rule being intentionally anchoring. So they're essentially working within the rules, and there's some guys...
So if they brush their shirt, it wasn't intentional?
Well, they can use that excuse. So the grey area is there. So there's some guys that are going to abuse that grey area and the rule, and there's some guys like Dave that said, no, I don't want any grey area. I don't want any if, buts and maybes. It's just, I'll go to the short putter. So the issue should be with the governing body and the R&A and change the rule, whether it be the shortest club in your bag. But they're essentially playing within the rules, and then you'll get the few exceptions that guys are going to abuse those rules like we do in everyday life. But the issue's with the rule itself.
It's a poor rule, most definitely. I think part of the thing that the USGA and the R&A, they're just hoping, or the whole idea was to stop people from taking the game up and doing that. Not necessarily to stop some of those guys that were doing it. And basically, you've got Langer that might only have a few more years left of playing. Scotty McCarron's got a few more than him. But other than that, once those guys stop using it, there's no one else really that uses those sort of putters. So once those guys stop playing, now you don't have any discussions or argument over it.
Do you leave the flag stick in when you putt?
For long distance, I do. But my idea is that if the R&A and the USGA thought that it would be easier and make the game easier for you, they wouldn't let you do it. So I reckon they've done studies, and I think that they know that it makes no difference or it's worse. It just makes the game faster.
Just on another topic, I was watching last night. Brendon, you probably watched it too. Did you watch John Rahm, of course, of Spain? Of course, he won the race to Dubai, DP World Challenge. In 2016, he turned professional in 2016. He's already won 3 times on the PGA circuit, 6 times on the European circuit, and one other win as well. He won $5 million last night. He's an extraordinary talent.
Yeah, I haven't seen that much of him.
Big man.
Yeah,
he's a big, strong guy.
Human. Big head, big human.
100 kgs.
He's actually exceptional gamer. Unbelievable. He'll be a major winner in the next few years.
Yeah, everyone will have their chance to do it. He's going to have probably 40 or 50 chances to win a major at the age that he is now, and you'd have to think that
only
at some
25.
point as a major, I'd have to think at some point that you're going to have a good week and do that and win a major somewhere there.
But he was touted as an unbelievable talent coming out of college. He's obviously Spanish, went to Arizona State or college in Arizona. So, yeah, exceptional talent. He's got all the attributes to win majors.
Yeah. And we've got the Australian Open, of course, coming up in Sydney. That starts on the 5th of December. But I noticed that Tiger Woods has got his Hero Challenge in the Bahamas, which starts on the 4th of December. So obviously a lot of the great Americans coming out here for the President's Cup, they won't be playing at the Australian Open. That's disappointing.
Most definitely, but that seems to be a trend, unfortunately, for Australian golfers, that it's really hard to get guys to come down from America. Well, they just had the RSM tournament that, is it Tyler Duncan just won, that you can't compete with the sort of money that they're throwing around. Well, I say they throw around, that they play for, whereas Australia's playing for, if you work it into US dollars, they're playing for $1 million. I play for more than that on the Champions Tour.
Mm. And it's really hard. Tiger's event too, so this is the chance where they can or should come out to Australia, but then Tiger says, well, you're coming to play my event, and he's the captain of the President's Cup team in the US, so they're going to essentially play yes men to Tiger Woods. So it is unfortunate, but we still have an amazing field.
The field's
this year. Yeah,
we've got a really good field this year because we've got a lot of the international guys coming to play.
Sergio Garcia is playing, Oosterhausen's playing, Ernie Eels is going to turn up and have a bit of a hit as well.
I like the way that Louis Oosterhausen swings it. He's one of my favourites.
What about when you look at the American side in the President's Cup, with Tiger Woods and Spieth and Thomas and Finau and Johnson and Ricky Fowler's coming in for Brooks Koepka, which is disappointing because he's number one player in the world not playing. But I like watching. Be interesting to get your thoughts on this because I like watching Ricky Fowler play. I reckon he's got charisma about him. He's good to watch. I know Koepka maybe is a bit more mechanical, but I don't think they'll lose anything from a spectacle. I mean, as long as Tiger's here, it's going to be successful. But I'm glad that Ricky Fowler's playing.
Personally, I think Ricky Fowler is a bigger draw card for kids and young people than Brooks Koepka.
Yeah, I agree.
Brooks probably as a player, obviously has had more success. But Ricky Fowler, most definitely, I see more kids at even Champions Tour events dressed in their orange Puma hats than... I wouldn't even know what Brooks plays, to be honest.
Nike, come on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but he's right. He's right. And Rick, when I was at the US Open this year, Ricky was playing, obviously, but he's one of those guys that there's a different sound off his club face. If you close your eyes and there was 20 guys on the range, you'd be able to pinpoint, not so much Ricky, but that guy's got a different sound to the rest of them. So it's a little bit funky and whatever, kind of does it his own way, but he's elite. He's a world class player that's won everywhere around the world. So it's I don't think it's. I would have loved to see Brooks. I've seen him up close once, but just to see him around Royal Melbourne, how he deals with it, best golfer in the last 3 or 4 years. Clearly, it'd kind of be special to see how he dealt with it. But yeah, we haven't lost much with Ricky, and particularly the kids. Everyone loves Ricky Fowler. He's like the Gen Y, Gen Z golfer that every kid loves.
And he's a great supporter of Jared Lyle too.
Yeah, absolutely
great
fantastic
supporter.
That way. Yeah, Ricky. I was still playing on the web when Ricky was one of the top amateur golfers, and so there was a nationwide charity event that we used to play in Columbus, Ohio. They invited all the what's it called, the All-American, the All-American players to come play, and even then, you could tell that Ricky, the way the ball came off his club was different to all the other players.
I saw Ricky play at Masters, Master of the Amateurs at Yarra Yarra years ago, when his hair was a bit longer then. He didn't have obviously the Puma gear on, but he's a top ranked amateur in the world, or in the top 5 or something at that particular time. I think he came second in the end at Master of the Amateurs. But I watched him then and thought, this just more about the charisma too, and a bit of presence as a young, 20-year-old. It was pretty good to see.
Without even really trying to as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
With Patrick Reed and also Gary Woodland as well. It's a very, very strong American side. It's one of the strongest I've ever seen. We've only ever won it once when Peter Thompson was in charge. What was that, 1998, was it? 1998 when Peter Thompson was in charge. But Mark Leishman, of course, Jason Day and Adam Scott and Cam Smith will head up the Aussie group. And you mentioned before about Oostenhausen. You love his swing. Matsuyama's there, of course, who's been such a terrific player. C.T. Pan, I think he's won once on the US PGA circuit, but I haven't seen much of him play. Have you seen much of him, Brendon?
Yeah, he won at Hilton Head, didn't he?
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, so he's a good little player. So when you look at that list, a lot of the guys are coming off pretty good years. So that's why I'm pretty optimistic about internationals' chances. So and you just mentioned Louis in great form. Hideki found some form in his last tournament over in Korea, I think it was. So. No, there's a number of guys who are in some pretty good form. And then when you throw in the Australians, the Sandbelt, somewhat of a local advantage, home ground advantage, that we should be in with a pretty good chance.
Yes, well, the Aussies are going to carry the international side. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Most definitely. My only thing with the President's Cup and the international team that I find is that the Europeans are a fantastic team, and that they play as a team really well, and that's why they beat the Americans so often, in my opinion. And the Americans, they're a good team, but the internationals, bringing together a team like that, it's a massive challenge, I think, for Ernie Els and Jeff, one of the assistant coaches. That's the biggest challenge. They've got to try and get them to have some sort of gelling as a team.
We spoke to Jeff about that and a while back, but it's just difficult when they're all in different parts of the world, playing in different tours, and then having a time when they can all get together and finally meet up. So the chances of doing that are a lot less likely than the US guys, where they're seeing each other literally every week, and Tiger can get them together, or he can send a plane and they can be somewhere in a couple of hours. But it's logistically pretty tough to do it. But then I think that's been a real disadvantage in the past. But then that's the challenges and stuff that Jeff and Ernie have kind of gone.
Well, I mean, under Peter Thompson, we won in 1998. There was another year when Peter was captain. It was a very, very close
South Africa
contest. Yeah, very, very close contest. It was a close contest, I think, one year with Gary Player and also Jack Nicklaus. I think there was a tie. There was a tie in the President's Cup. Yeah. So it can be done. It can be done. It might be difficult, but Peter Thompson, obviously, he got really, camaraderie and team spirit, didn't he, into the international side the year that they won?
Most definitely. I've been really lucky this year because I ask a lot of questions when I'm over on the Champions Tour over there. So I've had Corey Pavin, Jay Haas, Colin Montgomery.
Do you have to pinch yourself sometimes when you're like
a little bit, but the guys make it really easy, or generally speaking, and then you spend some time with their wives, and so it just becomes normal. Yep. It was actually funny because we egged on Colin earlier in the year, early last year with the wedding. So we asked if he went to the royal wedding with Prince Harry. So we were egging him on, and he's like, no, I didn't get an invite. But it was a wonderful, wonderful day, wasn't it? The weather was fantastic. It was just a beautiful sight. But that is not my point. My point was that I've been able to ask them how they go about preparing their teams for the President's Cup and for the Ryder Cups. So it's been really interesting in how getting the players together is important to find out who do they want to play with as a partner and what sort of equipment they use, because that's a massive thing, more than you realise, the difference in golf balls, that when you play those sort of matches, that you have to use someone else's golf ball that you may not necessarily have played before, and it just comes off and flies differently than you're used to.
Got to ask you one more question before we take a break because Craig Spence is about to join us as well. We're talking about some of the European players. One of the players that and he played last night, and in fact, John Rahm had to birdie the last hole to actually win the event. That's Tommy Fleetwood, who I love watching. He's a bit like a Ricky Fowler to me. I love watching him. Maybe it's his long hair and maybe it's his beard. He looks so small and tiny. Looks like he should be an absolute jockey. But I believe that after I drove you out of Australia, after playing in the Vauxhall Pro-Am, you went to America, you actually saved his career because he would have been banned from playing golf in America if it wasn't for you at the Masters.
Well, not quite like that.
Yes,
but
it is.
Take credit
for it. I was at the Masters last year. I had a couple of days without anything to do, and as a Champions Tour member, you get to go. So I went down for a couple of days, and I was in there buying, as everyone does when they go to their Masters. You're in the shop there buying as much as you can possibly carry. I must have spent about like $3,000 or $4,000 to bring stuff back. So I'm in line there, and this lady's in front of me, and she's got her cell phone there. Now, once you go to the Masters, you realise there's no way you can actually get into the tournament with a cell phone unless you've been driven in in your own courtesy car or whatever it is. And so I guess...
For the listeners out there, there's no phones allowed at Augusta.
So they body search you for phones, do they, as you go in?
Well, no, there are scanners that you have to go through. So they're protecting for all sorts of other weapons, but also cell phones. But I get in there and I said, you want to be careful with that. You may want to put that away because the player that you're with could get into a bit of trouble. And she's like, oh, thank you very much. And I said, do you mind if I ask who you're with? And she said, oh, Tommy Fleetwood. And I said, oh, I've played with Tommy. I played with Tommy at the Perth International a few years ago. She's like, oh. And I said, yeah, that was when he had short hair and he'd just come out off the Challenge Tour. I said, well before the long hair and the beard. And she says, oh, well, I have to take credit for that. I said he looked better with the beard and with the long hair.
And of course, you saved her with the telephone as well.
So she put her phone away. So that was. She said, "Thanks for that. Thanks very much for that."
David, stick around with us, and also Brendon Goddard. Dave McKenzie has joined us because after the break, Craig Spence is here, and he's going to give us all another golfing masterclass.
Everything you want to know about Aussie golf is in one place. PGA.org.au. This is the official site of the PGA of Australia. It's the one website loaded with all the tournament, course and player news. That includes the latest on the ISPS Hander PGA Tour of Australasia. The Find a PGA Pro directory will track down the pros near you. And here's where you can live stream golf's best on PGA TV, watching tournaments live, streaming replays, or watching the latest reports on Aussie golfers around the world. There are even video tips from the pros. So if golf's your game, this is your site. PGA.org.au from the Professional Golfers Association of Australia. Driving Australian golf since 1911.
RSN Podcast, all your favourite RSN shows and loads of new programs. You can listen all download wherever, whenever. And now we're on iHeartRadio, the world's #1 radio and podcast app.
RSN Podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts and at rsn.net.au. And now on iHeartRadio. It's free at your app store or head to iHeart.com.
Welcome back to the PGA Golf Club, of course, with Kevin Bartlett, David McKenzie and Brendon Goddard. And this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Craig Spence, of course, from Albert Park Golf Range with Golf Tip of the Week. This week, I believe he's telling us about the 5 myths of golf. G'day, Craig.
This is Whitey's favourite segment, KB, so tune in here. This is serious.
KB, good to be back in the studio with you, hosting beautifully as usual. So I didn't bring one tip, as you mentioned. I brought 5.
Perfect.
Okay? So I'll make them snappy.
David McKenzie's taking notes. Do you know that?
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to run them down.
I've ruined BJ, so now I'm going to try and ruin Dave, all right? Now, number 1, I just for the listeners, these are 5 things that I hear all the time of people helping each other on the golf course, right? Buddies trying to be buddies. I mean, you get tips from your mates all the time, don't you, KB, when you're going around the golf course?
I play with absolute mugs, and they're my coaches. I go around. They tell me what to do, and they can't play themselves.
And let's be honest, when you've had 5 bad holes in a row, you will listen to anyone. I love the famous Ian Baker Finch line where he said, I knew I was in trouble when I started listening to guys in the crowd. Right, I don't even know if that's really true.
Why is that when you play with your mates and you know your mate is an absolute mug like yourself, and then all of a sudden you have a shot, and then he starts telling you what you did wrong during the shot, and you listen to him intently.
Yes, you absolutely, and you try it. Doesn't work, but you try it. All right, number one on the great myths in golf is keep your head still. Right? Keep your head still. That is not true. Number one, when you turn back, when you turn your shoulders, your head actually needs to rotate a little bit. And if you look at all the great photos of Nicholas and Hogan, and their heads are actually rotated. Now,
actually, Nicholas starts with his head tilted,
he does. And if you look at the two of the best golfers, two number one players in the world, had their head looking at the target at impact, and that's Annika Sorenstrom and David Duval. So that's how much they kept their head still, right? So keep your head still. It's actually keep your eyes on the ball, right? Now, you can, for anyone who's not in the car at the moment driving, hopefully listening to this, you can, if you swivel your shoulders, rotate, put your hands on your shoulders, rotate your shoulders.
I'll do that while
you do that right now, KB. You will actually feel your head wants to rotate, but you can keep your eyes on one single fixed point. Now, I don't even necessarily believe you have to have your eye on the ball the whole time either, but for those who feel like they need to, keep your eye on the ball. Don't keep your head on the ball. That's tip number one. Tip number two. Dave, what do you think of that so far?
I'm full agreement.
Okay, good man. Tip number two.
He wrote it down.
Keep your left arm straight.
Oh, left arm straight. You've got to do that. Surely you've got to do that.
Jordan Spieth doesn't do it. Matt Goggin was a top 50 player in the world, had a very bent left arm. Dave, is your arm straight or slightly curved?
It's a bit bent, yes.
It's a bit bent. BJ?
I'd say bent.
Okay.
I was watching Rory McIlroy last night.
Sure.
Yes.
And Rory McIlroy, I reckon his left arm's straight.
And this is the point, KB. Some arms are dead straight, but the arms have to work around your body. And for a lot of people, when they try to keep their left arm straight, they push it straight back away from them, almost in a direct line, especially cricketers. They often just go straight left arm, push it straight back. So now they're trying to create a straight line in the golf swing. And that's the worst thing. The straight left arm really causes trouble because it makes the golf swing become too straight. I don't mind if you go back in the curve, if your arms go round your body, they can. Oh, geez, that's just a rookie mistake.
I've got someone call it. Just
someone's questioning it already.
David McKenzie getting a call up for the President's Cup.
Is that a slab, KB? What's that?
Yeah, what is that?
He's just got a call from the President's Cup there. That's it. That was Ernie Eels. That was Ernie Eels. It's just phoned up David McKenzie, and the Matsuyama has pulled out.
Yeah, you better put that on silent, please,
I
Dave.
thought I did, but
all right,
apparently not.
You can have a straight left arm as long as it goes around your body in a circle. Okay, that's tip number two. Do not be obsessed with a straight left arm.
Okay, so there's two faults I've got in my swing already.
All right, so keep your left. All right, so number three. I lifted my head. Apparently, I lifted my head. That's all I did wrong.
I get told that all the time by my playing partners.
No, mate, you're lifting your head. That's why you're topping it. That's all you did wrong.
I love that one.
The fact that you took it.
It's often in third person too that golfers talking themselves.
Oh yeah, I've lifted my. You've
generally,
done it.
Generally, an older generation with respect in this room, but it's I lift my head. I've got to keep my head down.
So now after
shot.
they keep their head so low to the ground after they hit the ball, they can't even turn through the shot. The ball's going absolutely everywhere.
It's an easy game.
What you're better off to do, rather than trying to focus on keeping your head down, take a couple of practice swings where you feel the ground. You feel that. Don't take big chunks out because the greenskeeper's not going to be too happy with you.
No, right.
But feel the club brush the grass. Feel it right beside the ball. Feel the club's deep enough to get under the ball. That'll help you, and then get in there and hit the ball.
So just on that, then, when someone tops the ball and they say, "Oh, I lifted my head,"
yes,
what actually happened?
Well, there's a million. You know, it's like saying I had a car crash. I must have lifted my head. Really? Okay.
Is it because
there's a few other reasons that could have
come
occurred.
Down your swing that you lift you stand up a little bit?
Well,
is that what causes you to top more than lifting your head?
I think the reality is that the more you top it, the more you're desperate to see the ball go up. So you actually start to break your wrists earlier, and you're trying to get the loft under the ball. So there's a almost. It's a bit like the slicer tries to pull the club further and further to the left, so he makes the problem worse, right?
Okay.
So realistically, people would be better off to try to feel the club stays sort of under the ball more and through to the target, which, if that makes any sense.
That's one of my favourite pro-am tips is actually to say, you know what, you need to brush the ground each time because depth is as much important in hitting a good golf shot. Yep. You can make a fantastic swing, and if you swing it an inch off the ground, you're going to miss the ball, and if you swing it straight into the ground, you're going to hit the ground first.
Yes.
So depth is almost as important as anything else.
It's a good point, and also you're playing. You might not realise the ground's a little bit lower on this shot, right? The ground might be a little bit above you. It might be downslope or slightly upslope, which we don't pick up on, but there's always variance, isn't there? So the practice swings beside the ball, where you clip the grass nicely. Don't turn into the guy that doesn't hit until he's hit the ground perfectly and he's done 15 practice swings and he still hasn't got it how he wants to.
Taking 10 divots.
Yeah, taking 6 divots. And sorry about that to the poor fella that's going through that. But if you can get the ground, you've got the right depth, and then hit the ball, KB.
Okay,
right?
So we're looking at the 5 myths of golf. The first one was keep the head still. Second one was left arm straight.
Yep.
And the third one is you lifted your head.
All right, the next one's for the putting. All right. Straight back, straight through. Straight back. Thanks for that, Joey. I like that.
Straight line.
Straight back, straight through. Mark Allen's been famous for saying this on air. I thought he knew better. No one should try to go straight back, straight through, because to do that, you have to push your hands further away from your body, come back to the ball, and then push your hands further away after you've hit it. It takes way more hand-eye coordination, way more manipulation of the club, and that way you can't do my tip from last week, which is let the club head swing. If the club head swings, the club will naturally arc around you, right? So straight back, straight through is absolute rubbish, all right? Don't do it. It's no good for your putting. Is that a bit too harsh, KB?
No, but the fact you're saying let the club head swing,
yes.
Does that mean that if we hold the club too tight that we won't able to get that club head to swing? So it's a very loose grip. I agree. Really relaxed grip. 3 out of 10, I say. The average punter's about 7 or 8 out of 10. So 3 or 4 out of 10. And don't be trying to take your hands completely out of it. Dave, I know you actually putted with a belly for a while.
Yes.
And that is a great drill for helping to feel the curve of the stroke, isn't it?
Most definitely. You feel the arc of it. And I felt both two things. One is I felt it arc marginally inside to inside, and then I also felt it arced both up on the way back and then up on the way through. So that was the two things that I felt and really worked on.
BJ, do you arc the putter around you, or do you try to keep it in a straight line?
Yeah, well, my tendency is to go way inside on the way back in particular. But so I try and my exaggerated feeling is straight back, which is really slightly inside as opposed to. So it's a different feeling, but generally to be slightly inside.
What about you, KB? What do you try to do with the putter?
Well, I for some reason, I aim the putter.
You're good, are you?
I aim the putter in the wrong direction.
Do you?
For some reason, when I line up my putts,
I'm
always going right.
When you line them up or when you hit them?
It's a good point. It's a good point to make. Putting's not my strongest suit, let me tell you.
Okay. All right, so not straight back, straight through.
So I should putt on an arc now.
Yeah, and in a practice for that would be to push the putter up into your belly, just hold it on the metal, just as a practice, and feel the way the putter will swing around your body. All right? That's what we need.
Okay.
Not straight back, straight
through. So don't putt in a straight line, putt on an arc.
Yep. And number 5, drum roll.
Drum roll.
We don't have a... Oh, you did have a drum roll.
Joey Pignataro, the world's greatest producer.
All right, I've stood over it. I've chunked or topped my chip shot across the green, and I say I decelerated on it.
Yes.
Right? I didn't accelerate enough. So the next 5 shots, the club's going back 2 inches and following through almost 8 feet, right?
Look at David McKenzie laughing his head off.
And I don't know, but the worst chippers I've ever played with take it back about an inch and hit the ball about 6 times on the way through. And the ball goes left, right, long, short. You've got to have a nice, even backswing and follow through in chipping. Therefore, there is no you don't have to push the club through to the target or accelerate at 100 mile an hour. Just a nice even swing. Let the tempo of the club head. Do you feel the club head?
No.
On the swing? Oh, Dave.
Oh, Dave. I've never felt the club head.
I better go to Dave. What's a good drill for people? People don't believe me when I say they've got to feel the club head. You've got to feel the club head when you chip.
What I like to do is to chip with one hand,
Yes.
my right hand.
Yes.
So you generally won't hold it so tight. And then the other thing that I'll do is I'll take a couple of fingers off the grip. So the couple of fingers off my left hand so that the club has to swing. And alternately, sometimes I'll do it off my right hand. Yes. Funny you say about decelerating. My caddy kept telling me this year, you're decelerating on your chip shots.
He's got to say
mate,
something.
You don't know anything.
And he's still your caddy?
Well, I haven't got his caddy ability.
He hasn't
because
gone,
he's good golf.
So that means to feel the club head, what you're saying is you've got to hold the club, both in putting and also chipping, quite lightly.
Yes.
Relatively.
To feel the weight of the club head.
I'm not the best at holding. I hold it pretty tight, generally speaking, but I understand that I hold it too tight.
What about you, Brendon?
No, lighter, but we had this discussion maybe 2 weeks ago
about
the importance of grip pressure, and that's one of my tendencies, I think, like most amateurs, most golfers, is top of the swing, you get a bit tense and tighten up, particularly in your hands, and I have the over-the-top move as my bad one, so I constantly have to remind myself to keep that grip pressure not only at address, but when I get to the top and the transition, to keep it the same the whole way through the golf swing. And it's amazing. The difference in what it makes.
Chippers are very good, and bunker players are very good at bottoming out in the right spot, right? So, some professionals play off some incredibly tight lies, incredibly tight and hard lies. So if they hit an inch or two before the ball, they're going to get, that double hit and that terrible, miss hit across the green. So you have to bottom out in the right spot, KB. So to do that, you need that softness in the hands.
But I need to know, how much do I open my stance and where do I position the ball?
All right. So let's say you want to hit a higher chip shot over a bunker, right? You'd have the ball a little bit forward near the front foot, right?
Front foot.
Yep. But you would also, to do that, you would open your stance a little bit so your feet come round pointing a little bit in front of the ball, and you bend your knees a little bit and put the pressure of your weight a little bit onto the front foot, right?
Is your head in front of the ball or behind the ball?
No, your head would be level with the ball, or even some people a little bit to the right or to the behind the ball. But you really want the ball to be level with your left shoulder, depending on what shot you're trying to hit. If you're going to hit a low chip shot and run it a bit more, you might put it back in your stance slightly. So now your hands are slightly in front of the ball, and again, you're going to catch the ball just before it gets to that lowest position. Therefore, it'll squeeze the ball out a little bit lower. Yeah, but in order to get the right rotation, people do sometimes set up a bit square and take their body out of it, but you do want to allow your body to turn a little bit. Dave, I'll ask you, with your chipping, do you feel like your hips and your body turn through after the contact with the ball a little bit?
My body will follow the club, though, more than anything. And usually I'll use shaft lean, so I'll move the ball back in my stance, and I want to make sure that when I make impact with the ball that the shaft is leaning forward to hit it low. And then alternately I'll move the ball to the other side, to my left foot, and have the shaft leaning the other direction, and at impact try to have the shaft leaning backwards to hit my high shot.
If you had a lie where the grass was growing into you, so we call that into the grain, but just for our punters out there, grass is coming in towards you. That's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's about as hard as it gets as a player, because you can look like a real donkey quite often. And so I'm not always the best, so quite often I'll putt those ones.
Yeah, good idea.
Can I just ask this? Should the average golfer sometimes not go for the wedge or the 9-iron to
probably 95% of the time, I reckon.
And if there's not a bunker in front of him or there's not tall grass, should always putt?
Yeah, inside of 50 yards probably.
Yeah, Texas wedge. Plenty of those, Kevin.
There's an old saying that if I can putt it, I should.
Okay.
If I can't putt it, I should chip and run it. And if I can't chip and run it, I should lob it. So that's the order, right?
Because I think Jack Nicklaus once said that
saying.
your worst putt for an average guy, your worst putt would be better than your best chip.
Yes.
For the average player.
For the average player.
I've seen some
which is me. Not Brendon. He's
Well,
a superstar.
the problem with you, KB, is you'd go out to the right.
I do too. I do
You put it right.
I do. So the 5 myths of golf: keep your head still. That's bad.
Yep.
Left arm straight. Don't do that. Lifted your head. That is wrong.
Yep.
Don't putt in a straight line.
Yep.
And don't listen to anyone that says you're decelerated on your chip shots.
Yep. So you don't do anything.
Don't do
What about the end of the grain chip shot?
Yep.
I recently saw a footage of Phil Mickelson
Yes.
on his
I saw
famous
that too.
Twitter account
Yep.
with the toe down shot.
Yep.
Do you want to explain that to the listeners?
Yep. It was a brilliant tip, that one. And so, KB, did you see it on Twitter?
No.
No, I thought you were right into your Twitter.
Well, I've watched everything with Phil, but I've missed this one.
So what you do is you sit the club down behind the ball, say a 54-degree sand wedge or something like this, and you raise your hands really high and you turn the club inwards a little. So now it's sitting on what we call the toe, right? So you might even have to aim a little bit around to the right because you're twisting the club around a little bit. And what that does is it means only the toe is interacting with the ground instead of the whole club face, So now it gives you a much better chance of catching the ball and not flubbing the grass that's laying into you. We call it into the grain, like we said before. And some grain, especially if you're playing Queensland, as soon as your club catches a couple of pieces of that grass, it will stop. It just is so strong. And so you have to come up with some alternatives. So that really high hands, turn the club inwards so the toe is resting on the ground only, and try it. Give it a whirl. Your feet have to be in close to the ball to do it.
Craig, that's why you're the best in the business, of course. Dave, always great to catch up with you too. It's been absolutely fantastic,
Craig.
and good luck on the seniors tour. And Brendon, as the world's greatest footballer turned golfer, always great also to catch up. He skites a lot, doesn't he? Because he's good at golf. He skites.
He's good at everything, I think. Thanks, KB.
Thanks for that, Craig. This has been the PGA Golf Club. Just subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating, and we'll be back next week to do it all again.